Hey everybody, it has been a while. I've recorded a couple of videos that I then didn't feel like editing, rambled at the camera for a while and discovered that it wasn't recording, but mostly I'm just out of the habit. I could blame, I'll be very vague here, because the algorithms are listening and judging and doling out punishment. The platform upon which you are watching this sent me an email a little while ago. It's been weeks now, actually, saying, this video of yours from 2019, we've decided is, in this video, you are guilty of cyberbullying. Really? Now, this is from 2019 when I was doing a video every single day. So I can see the title of the video, but I don't know what's in it. I don't keep local copies of these things. And they've deleted it, so I can't review it. And they write something to the effect of, we know it's disappointing to have your content taken down. Please review our community guidelines to determine what it was, that caused this. I'm like, this is a 3-year-old video. I can't review it because you've already destroyed it. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Now, who's even watching a video from 3 years ago? Anyway, I could say that's why I haven't been doing videos. The real reason is I'm just out of the habit. It's not a source of income for me. It's just something I do. So one day of not shooting videos leads to another. I have been doing a lot more podcasting recently, particularly for the Padverb Podcast. And there's a couple episodes. I mean, if you're not, goodness gracious. But one time I come out to do a video, weed eating. Hopefully you don't hear it. Oh, damn it. Another reason I haven't been doing these videos, I'd like to shoot them outside, and it has been freaking hot. These past few weeks, it has been consistently hotter here than it has been in the Philippines. So my brother, who's lived here in Arkansas for many years, says this is the worst summer that he remembers in terms of just unrelenting heat. Most summers, it gets up to around 100 every now and again, but then it drops down into the 80s. And it's been in the 90s consistently every day and regularly above 100. I'll put centigrade equivalents on screen for people outside the U.S. Here's the thing. I mean, I've lived in countries where Celsius is the temperature scale, Japan, Australia. I never did get used to it. I never, I've just never acquired the ability to hear somebody say, yeah, it's 26 degrees, and for me to have an intuitive notion of what that really means. Look, there's a cattail. Hey, buddy. Welcome. Keep moving. Yeah, didn't really need that. Thank you. All right. So yes, I would totally love to come to an agreement where I will happily measure everything in kilometers and kilograms and all that good stuff. But come on, everybody, the Fahrenheit scale is so much better. I mean, like 25 is a comfortable temperature, but 32 is hot. There's hardly any range there. That's just not a good temperature scale for measuring, temperatures which are of interest to human beings. At least in terms of our environment, the temperature of the air. Anyway, I was going to say that's not what I planned to talk about. I didn't plan to talk about anything in particular other than the Padverb Podcast, right? A couple episodes from the recent past. If you're not listening, but you like the Sea Realm podcast, you really should tune in at least to these two, but really to all of them. I think some people, there was a few episodes up front that were crypto heavy, and I think maybe some people decided it was a podcast about crypto. It's really not. We haven't done a crypto show in quite a while. But episode number 6 with Richard Firth-Godbehere, I don't remember the name of his book, but I'll put it on screen. He's just a really charismatic, fun guy to talk to, and I had a lot of fun in that conversation, and I think if you listen to it, you'll catch the fun. The fun is transitive. So we talk about the history of emotions, the history of talk about emotions, and then just examining the question. I mean, you can be a total solipsist. How do I know anybody else feels anything? But given that we all have pretty much the same basic sensory equipment and neurological, gear works, you can make a pretty decent inference that we have similar sensations, similar subjective experience, but how big a role does culture play? And Richard Firth-Godbehere's original research specialty was disgust. If you're disgusted by something, it's not rational. We all know that bugs have, a lot of nutrition in them that humans could be eating, and European explorers, Europeans trapped in strange environments have starved to death when there were bugs all around that they could have eaten. And if you're a global conspiracist, the Davos crowd or George Soros or the lizard people, they want us to eat bugs and live in pods. That's the meme. I'm disgusted by bugs, but I remember, driving around in northern Thailand, riding around. My friend was driving. We'd stop in, these not chain restaurants and not restaurants for tourists. We're way off the tourist track, and we're just sitting in these little, open air restaurants, sitting on plastic table or sitting on plastic chairs at plastic tables, and on shelves, just sort of not even behind a counter, just around. There are big jars, I guess, filled with alcohol with snakes in them and with huge centipedes in them. And they're for eating. Gross. I'm disgusted by that. But Richard Firth-Godbehere the point of disgust is it keeps you from eating carrion. It keeps you from eating shit. It keeps you from eating things or touching things that could transfer disease pathogens to you. It's a good thing. It's an evolutionarily adaptive aspect, of our psychology. But it's not the same for everybody. It's mutable. I mean, it's like there's, if you don't handle cats within a certain window when they're kittens, they're feral and they will never be comfortable around humans. I think there's a period when we're young when we are really adaptable in terms of what we consider disgusting and what we consider normal, to touch, to interact with, to eat. And so it's not hardwired, it's learned, but it's a learned thing that later in life seems hardwired. It feels hardwired. To me, the whole sticking a wriggling bug in your mouth and crunching down on it, that's non-negotiable. I'm just not interested in that. Now, are there ground up bugs in things that I've eaten? Most likely for you as well, even if you didn't want or intend to eat bugs. So it goes, that's processed food for you. So anyway, had a fun conversation about is subjective experience and our emotions. I mean, I felt fear before. I felt fear for my life, but was that the same fear that, a Cro-Magnon man? I mean, what does that mean anymore? Is that even current scientific nomenclature? Is that the same that a prehistoric human being, but anatomically modern human being felt when staring down the maw of a wolf or a bear? Probably, I would think so, but who knows? Our language, the language that we use to think, has an impact on our subjective experience, but how big? So that's the topic of conversation with Richard Firth-Godbehere. And then more recently, the most recent published episode, it's episode 12, is with Rob Brooks. And he is an evolutionary biologist, and he's written a book about artificial intimacy and talking about a variety of things. The most lurid and sensational of which is the sex robot. In fact, having mentioned sex robots, I can now take an image of a sex robot and put it in the cover art. And I bet the YouTube algorithm would like that. I probably won't, though. What are you doing down there? It doesn't look like a comfortable place. So, do you want to see where the cat settled? This is ridiculous, I think. Does that look comfortable? That doesn't look comfortable to me. That's not where I would settle if I were the cat. Anyway. Rob Brooks. So yeah, we talked about a variety of things, but who needs a sex robot? Well, somebody who's not getting sex with a partner that stimulates them. And for some people, they're just not getting any sex at all, and they'd like to, and they're willing to spend $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. I don't know what the upper price range is on the doll bots, but they're very expensive. And Rob was willing, usually I do research before going into a conversation. I don't expect the guest to do any research. But in this instance, Rob did. And he listened to my interview with First of Incelmatics on the C-Row. And so, he, not only had I heard several interviews with him and heard a good deal of the audiobook of his book, but he had heard, me talking to First for quite a while. So, we were both pretty well prepared for that conversation, and I think it shows. So if you think you're not interested in the Padverb Podcast, but for whatever reason you do listen to these YouTube videos, do check out episode number 12. I think it'll be worth your while. Again, it's one of those where I had a lot of fun on the conversation, and I think the fun is transitive. I think you'll enjoy it as well. Anything else? Media. The Orville season 3 is a wrap, and there was the Orville since season 1 has been kind of interacting with the trans issue in the guise of the Mocklin Society, which is all male, but it turns out actually a few of them are born female, and they get a sex or gender reassignment surgery or gender affirming surgery. I don't know, whatever. They get turned into men surgically as children. As infants, in fact. And the Mocklin characters on the ship, Bortus and Clyden, they hatch an egg together, and it's a girl, and they want to, this is in season 1, they want to get the girl fixed, and the rest of the crew is aghast, and they sit Bortus down, and they have him watch the claymation Christmas special, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And Bortus, takes a profound message from it, that Rudolph, who is flawed with this glowing red nose and his father really should have killed him, it turns out that his flaw was a strength in certain circumstances, the foggy Christmas night when Santa would have trouble delivering the presents to the boys and girls, and he's not seeing any silliness in this at all. He's just seeing the profound nature of it. And, he becomes a champion of letting his daughter remain a daughter. And there's a court case, and they lose. And the daughter is made male. And now here we are in season 3, and the daughter is, the son. The daughter has been raised as a son, and the son is unhappy, feels weird, doesn't know that, he, she, it, they, whatever was born female. And there's a big hullabaloo about it. And it's the closest that the Orville comes to, sort of tired hortatory engagement in the whole culture war stuff right now around the trans issue. And it was kind of irritating, but they had laid the groundwork years ago. This was an ongoing story with this character, and it was handled better than I've seen it anywhere else. Certainly better than anything Star Trek has done. New Trek, I'll call it. So anyway, Orville season 3, they dialed back the humor. Basically, they're channeling all the humor now through Gordon Malloy, the pilot, and Bortus to some extent, because he's just hyper-masculine and not very self-aware. So he's become a focus of the comedy, and everybody else, who used to have their comedic beats doesn't anymore. And it's particularly noticeable in the Captain, Ed, who's played by Seth MacFarlane. He's now just straight. I was going to say Starfleet captain. What do they call Starfleet? I mean, this is just Star Trek. It is just, hey, what if Star Trek The Next Generation never gave up that bright, happy, optimistic tone? What if they were still doing that? Here's what it would look like with modern special effects. And, it would be like, I know Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor in the Marvel movies, he's got a super build. He's a really good looking guy, so he's perfect for action films. But now that we've seen that he really does have the chops for comedy, to me, it would be kind of a waste to see him in a non-comedic role. But, of course, we need action movies, right? So anyway, it's kind of the same with Seth MacFarlane. I mean, he not only has comedic chops, he can deliver a comedic line, but he's a writer, so he's got the comedy. It's kind of weird to see him not flex it. But, they're just looking to be Star Trek now. I mean, I think the comedy was required to get things off the ground. It's like, hey, we're going to do a comedic, take on Star Trek. And here's the guy, the creator of Family Guy, at the helm. That was the sales pitch. But then, once you get into it, it's like, oh, wait a second. The comedy here is, at first I thought you could just remove the comedy and it would stand on its own. And I suppose it does. And I like the longer format. I don't know what their exact running time is, but it's more than an hour. It's less than a movie, each episode, but it's more than an hour. Anyway, The Orville, Season 3, New Horizons. Yeah. I hope there's a Season 4. I'll just say that. I'm not gushy about it like I was for the first 2 seasons, but I'll take more. Certainly will take more. Prey, the most recent addition to the Predator franchise. Yeah, it's kind of got the girl boss, but she's not flawless from the get-go. She does have to train, she does have to practice, she does have to sacrifice, so she's not Rey Skywalker. She's not some stand-in. She's not perfect from the get-go. And she does have to struggle. And it's pretty well done. Now, I'm in the minority. I liked Predators, the one with Adrian Brody and Danny Trejo, Mahershala Ali, Walter Goggins, what's his name? Lawrence Fishburne. I liked it. For some reason, it didn't hit with most people. I really like that one. In fact, I've watched it twice this year. I watched it once while I was waiting for Prey to drop on Hulu. But anyway, Prey takes place 300 years ago. Main character is a young Comanche woman who wants to be a hunter, and she's not getting the support that she wants from her tribe. So yeah, you can kind of see the message pressed into it, but not in an obnoxious way. I mean, maybe I'm to the point where I can take the message if it's embedded in competent storytelling, which, the most objectionable instances of it recently being the last 5, 6, 7 years, were the Star Wars movies and Star Trek. I mean, in addition to having the message just pressed up in your face, the storytelling was incompetent. This is simply incompetent. And it's not the case with Prey. Prey's pretty good. So, a lot of people watched it and their, next day reactions are, well, I was ready to hate this, but it's pretty good. Some people have just doubled down on their insistence that, no, we're done with the message. We don't want the message anymore. I think the critical drinker is probably the one who comes to mind for me most. Anyway, Prey, I liked it. I got Netflix so that I could watch Sandman. Sandman, pretty good. There was a gender swap of Joanna Constantine for John Constantine. And I think it was Midnight's Edge did a video about that. And it wasn't really the message taking over. It was that, somebody else was holding the rights to the John Constantine character. And I think it was J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot production company. And they were going to make a stink if the Netflix crew tried to use that character. So just to keep things simple and out of court, they changed the character. So it wasn't so much the message. And as so many other people have pointed out, I mean, I read the Sandman comic books when they were current. I wasn't on board from issue 1, but I caught up with back issues, and then I was reading it month to month for years. And, it's full of gay characters. It's full of, there's a drag queen character in the TV show. That character's from the comic. It hasn't been gayed up. It has been gayed up, actually. Multiple bisexual and homosexual relationships have been added to the series, and I guess that's, for the ESG score. But in Sandman, in any Neil Gaiman property, it shouldn't offend. If you know the original material, this is not any sort of perversion of it. All right, I've been jabbering. This doesn't need to be a long video. Oh, it already is, but it didn't need to be. Listen to the Padverb Podcast. If there's anything you've seen recently that you think I should take a look at, let me know. I brought up Sandman so that I could also mention that because I had, Netflix for a month, I decided to give their Resident Evil series a try. it's kind of interesting at first, but then it just gets boring. It's very slow paced. You know, an action zombie apocalypse setting survival story is boring. You know, if you've got a 5-episode story and you try to get 10 episodes out of it, yeah, that's what happens. All right. Maybe I will talk to you again in this format in the near future. Maybe not. Talk to you later.